Welcome to the Creature Cast, the official Console Creatures podcast. My name is David Petrangelo, and I'll be one of your hosts for this journey into all things video games. It's my pleasure to say hello once again to my fellow writers and podcasters. First up this week, Bobby, how are you, man?
I am fantastic. I just have a quick little bit of, I guess, an editor's note that we need to start with today. And for court, guys, you know I'm going to say, right?
I honestly don't.
Oh, you don't know? Well, that's because you don't have taste either, because you guys are big haters of the most Canadian thing in the world, and that is pineapple pie. Pizza pie. Not
pizza.
Pineapple pie.
Specifically pizza, yeah.
But also, you also like pecan pie, which I want to talk. Oh, I just want to bring this up because you guys have been harassing me all week on Twitter and court.
Just this week, though, right? Just this week.
Yeah. He's been harassing me. He's been asking questions on the Xbox Drive about me, saying I might, it's been a harassment campaign. I feel like I'm getting my name smeared. Guys, this is a war now. This is like a Splatoon level event where it's Team Pecan or Team Pizza.
Or Team Pecan. I don't know.
Yeah. Guys, there's a lot of slander going on. I want everyone listening to go to his account and just drop a gif of a pineapple pizza pie.
No, see that's harassment. I won't stand for that from my good friend Court. He's on the right side of history. We already talked about this online, and I'm going to chime in here. Pineapple pizza is an abomination. It's gross. It shouldn't even be. It should be eradicated from Canadian history. That's how bad it is. And Sam, whoever the fuck that created it, put him in jail. I don't care.
He's my
he means nothing to me. He means nothing to me.
He's actually dead. So really,
that's because, you know why? Because he knew I would come and find him and suplex him into the concrete,
into a pineapple. Suplex him into a
poor
pineapple.
Old man just did nothing but create a sweet and salty pizza pie. Being harassed.
Now, my question, Steve, is: yes. Do you like pineapple separately?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's just on pizza.
Sometimes that's part of it, right?
Yeah, because there are so many better ingredients to put on your pizza. Why would you? Why to the bottom?
But then you're thinking outside. You're not thinking outside the box. Like, you can have more than one pizza pie at a time. You can have a pineapple pie and you can have a deluxe pie.
I could have unlimited pizza in front of me, and I still wouldn't. I still wouldn't put a slice of pineapple pizza in my tummy, because that's how.
Wow.
How
yeah, I personally don't hate it, but I don't like it either. I'm not going to go and grab, like, if I had a choice between some slightly baked bread with some slight oil and sauce, or garlic and oil on it, or some sort of like focaccia bread, and then there was that's the best.
Right? Like that's what I would want.
Well,
but if I had to get a traditional pizza, it would be a pineapple pizza.
Oof.
Canadian
traditional. Oh,
that's wild.
Brutal.
That's wild to me.
Brutal. I don't know. Hey,
I feel like this is just a topic that we're gonna never ever agree on. So I'm just gonna keep saying it. Just drop pineapple gifs on their Twitter accounts. I will personally be there with you to do it every day for the rest of my life.
Every single day. I will say, one of the reasons why I never got into it in the first place when I was younger, I used to be allergic to pineapple. You know how sometimes you can kind of get out of mild allergies and stuff. Yep. Now I can eat pineapple like in small amounts or whatever, but at the time it was never an option, even just on a fruit plate or whatever. So I think I never developed the taste for it as part of it. It's a little bit of a cop-out or excuse, but also I don't really like it.
I mean, you're not missing anything.
Apparently.
No, you're missing out on a lot.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, you're missing out on a lot.
A lot of pizza. A lot of pizza goodness. Yeah. I like my pizzas, so it's all good. Actually, the plan this weekend is for us to make a nice homemade pizza. Probably more traditional and less pineapple, but the
way God
intended.
Nice
pizza this weekend. The way the pizza God intended.
Pizza gods,
or at least the non-Canadian pizza God intended. Okay, so let's get into some of the games we've been playing. Let's talk about a couple things. We have a slew of new things to talk about, as well as some not so great news from the gaming media world. We'll talk about the fact that Waypoint is no more. That just sort of dropped as of this afternoon of this recording. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But we'll get to the good news first, or at least I hope so. Let's talk about some games. You guys both been playing the new Horizon DLC. Because you guys have both been playing it, I want to hear what you guys think. Steve, let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. So, Horizon Forbidden West, the Burning Shores DLC came out roughly last week from when we're recording this. I've gone through, played it all to completion, did most of the side stuff as well. I went through and actually, I'm thinking about it, I think I got most of the trophies, the additive trophies there. Yeah. And just top level, I really dug this. Obviously, this is a DLC that was made, tailor-made for the PlayStation 5, so it does suck to a certain extent, that a large amount of people who bought the game on PlayStation 4 just don't get this little piece of content. Because I think, in contrast to Frozen Wilds, which was the DLC for Zero Dawn, I think this is actually a must-play piece of content, which is something I don't really say a whole lot about for
100%.
specifically like DLC. I think a lot of story-made DLC is kind of tossed in there. It's kind of just additive. It doesn't necessarily do much. Yeah, it's a filler piece of content that you can dive back into one of your favorite games and kind of just re-explore it. But I really do feel like this not only pushes the story forward, but it also enhances, I think, one of the main things that I love Horizon. But I can totally see why people kind of say, oh, Aloy is kind of just not a bad character by any means. I think Aloy is great, but I think that just depending on who she's able to bounce off of, some people will say, oh, she comes across as like a little, stonewallish or a little stale, and so like a little, abrasive in some ways. And I totally see that depending on who she's interacting with. In this, I think she exemplifies the best personality. I think that she shines next to the new character. I don't want to go too much into the story itself because it's shorter, probably about like 10 hours or something, but I think that the story is very punchy once you get there. And I think Aloy is just at her best personality wise and character wise in this game. I mean, unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people kind of go through and be like, a major part of the story has already been ruined because Kotaku was just fragrantly posting about it. And I highly recommend people just avoid the Kotaku feed right now, because they are unabashedly kind of just ruining one of the coolest moments, I think, of this piece of DLC.
Oh man, thank God I've missed that so far then.
Yeah, because
I have dozens of hours still to play in the original game before I get to this.
Exactly. So. And one of the main things about this is that you can't play it until you're done the main story. So like it is very much, hey, you roll credits, and this is setting up this kind of like interstitial between two, and then now that we know a third game is in the works, Guerrilla kind of confirmed that this week. This is very much that kind of like tie-in thing. So yeah, you have to beat the game, launch it to this new piece of DLC, go over to LA. And for me, it was one of those funny things. Dave, you're in such a good place because I highly doubt you're gonna run into this issue, but I'm assuming Bobby ran into the similar issue as me. You jump in and you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't know the controls. I don't know how to call this. I don't know how to go through the menus. I
got bodied. I got bodied by
oh
some
my God.
right away. And they're like just like, I was cannon fodder to them. Like I showed up and they fucking shut me down. I was like, they're like, no, you're not doing this.
You're a joke, kid. Sit down.
Honestly, like I you get the quest from Silas. He's like, you got to go to LA. I was like, cool. I'm Hollywood bound, and you go through this like 6 cinematic. You end up in the ground, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna take over take on these robot dinos, and then all of a sudden I'm just getting dummied. I was like, oh man, it. People say like, it's like riding a bike. This game is not riding a bike whatsoever. You have to like meticulously go back through and kind of, but it does a good job. Like once you get back into it, I'm just reminded by, oh my God, this game just feels so good.
It's an incredible game.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, even starting this, when I purchased it months ago, and I have not gone back to it enough times, but even when I first started, and you have like very little abilities and items, and the whole how the weapon wheel works and everything. And yes, there's more going on in this game than there was in the first, but even just that, just not having the muscle memory from playing the first game like 2 years, 3 years prior, was like, and then now this, when you load this up, you're fully loaded now from what you were when you finished the original game, right? So it's just like there's almost more going on. That's not a problem for just this game. That's can happen with a lot of games that have DLC like this, that have like, lots of weapons, lots of items, abilities, things like that. So it's not exclusive to this, but is there any sort of like way that it sort of eases you back in, or is it more like, hey, it's just go and that's it? It sounds like it's just go, because you guys both got your ass kicked for the first few minutes.
There are like, I mean, basic stuff. It's just like, it's just very, I don't know, entry level, like tutorial, not even tutorial. It's just like, how you like load the screen and it's got like the message. That's pretty much all I remember.
That's it. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't experience anything else. I mean, Steve, maybe I missed it because like I unfortunately, I'm one of those people who does 3 things at once. So like I'm trying to play a game while either listening to something. So I might have missed it, but like I didn't see anything.
No,
the new stuff they definitely showed you, like the new weapons and stuff, like for sure. Like you're like, hey, here's your new stuff. Go play with it.
Sure,
but like,
sure.
The old stuff, I don't think it was anything like that. I didn't notice anything, at least.
No. I guess that's understandable. It's not really meant to be the beginning of a new game. It's literally the continuation. Like you said, you can only get to it if you've completed the story of the initial one. So, So, but overall, like gameplay wise, obviously it's the same systems and everything. But but there's new weapons and items and stuff. Or what's the sort of like, without spoiling things? What's sort of
a couple new weapons. One I adore, actually. I think it's really cool. But it's a lot of new systems, and again, I don't want to spoil something from Forbidden West, but a large bulk of this game is kind of just giving you more time with something you get at like towards the end of the Forbidden West. And I think a lot of players kind of had that similar complaint of like, oh, you gave us something, and then kind of credits just rolled right after. This game,
I think I have a feeling what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's not a spoiler. It's in the trailers and everything. I feel like if you don't know what it is at this point,
keep it that way, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or don't watch it was leading up to it. I mean, inevitably, we all knew it was going to lead to this whole thing. But like, I mean, it ended up being pretty cool. I mean, maybe the hype was a little bit overbearing because it ended up not being. It was. I think it's a good first try in what they're doing to push the hardware. So I mean, it was cool. Just I'm sure the next iteration will probably be better. But like, it was definitely cool.
Yeah.
That's without saying anything. It's just you have to like be there to try it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then obviously the big thing that Guerrilla was talking about was the reason why this game couldn't run on PlayStation 4 is because there's a specific boss battle that again is teased in the trailer. If you don't know about it, keep it that way, because it is honestly one of the coolest video game spectacles, I think. Where this whole time I'm going through, I'm like, this is the Decima engine. I want more games running on the Decima engine. This is just one of the coolest video game moments I think I've experienced in this current generation. Where I'm like, this is PlayStation delivering us like a new
this is them firing on all cylinders. This is basically like, hey, this is what we're here to do and we're good at it. But I think the 2 big things, the takeaways were this battle was the final boss battle was definitely cool, and like the cloud geometry was freaking cool. Like that was that was Microsoft Flight Simulator levels of like cloud. Like it looks so good, and I can see why that wouldn't work on PlayStation. I know it's kind of like a vapid reason, but like being there and playing, it's like, okay, I can kind of see why they're trying to push this, because like it is cool. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, the cool thing is the new powers. Like the new Valor Surges are cool. A couple of the new abilities I like them. Like, I mean, they're not really spoilers, but like they give Aloy just enough of a leverage against like the new environment. Like it's cool. I'm glad they were adding it.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something like I gotta now. I should have gone back to this before, and now it's too late.
Star Wars is loaded on from you.
Star Wars is loaded on my PS5. By the time I finish that, even if I don't play Tears of the Kingdom right away, it's next. And then once that comes around, it's Diablo. It's just like, none of those games are small. So it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'll get to this eventually. It's probably going to end up being like the first one, where I bought it, I think like a year after it came out. I played it through, it was fine, but then the DLC I didn't get to until like a year after that came out. So it was like another, so I might do something like that, but it sounds really great. I mean, you guys make it sound like it's a damn good time, and like you said, I think you were saying, Steve, it's like essential content essentially. So
if you're a fan of the Horizon series, I would say 100% go purchase this if you're on PlayStation 5. And I mean, if honestly, it kind of hurts to say because you're not experiencing it, but if you're a PlayStation 4 player and you're like, I don't have the means to like upgrade to the next console, honestly, just go on YouTube and watch some of these cutscenes because the story is really good.
Okay,
the story is really good. So, but try to play it. Like if you can get a console, if you know you're going to get a console soon, hold off because it is a really cool piece of content.
Yeah, it's different when you experience it. Yeah,
100%. It sets up everything. Like we know, obviously, there's going to be a third game. It falls directly into that, and it's just like, okay, the story's been building up to this point. We know that it's going to come to a head, and I hope they ended on the trilogy. Like, that would be perfect. Just like a cap and one more game, done.
Have they said that there's going to be more DLC? I've missed if they said
not another DLC, but like they basically confirmed the third game's already in development.
Third game.
I mean,
okay, all right,
that's cool.
So almost that actually gives quote unquote more value to this DLC because it's sort of like you said. I think Steve, you mentioned it's sort of like a bridge between the two games, and there's obviously enough important stuff happening here story wise, especially that if you want to go into the third, being all caught up and everything, at some point this DLC seems to be exactly where you need to be. Yes, there's restrictions based on just you can only play it on PS5. Yes, you have to complete the full story, but hey, if you're into the story, you're into the story, and you're going to the content. So if
you're invested, you already beat the game. Like you already picked it up. You've played it. So like it's definitely it's hitting a certain market, and I mean, obviously, PlayStation gamers are very passionate, so they probably already finished it and. I would say most of them are satisfied. I've heard nothing but positive things about it. Aside from the user scores, which are
unless you disgusting. Go on Metacritic.
Yeah, but that doesn't really at this.
No, those
we know now
that
doesn't really.
Those guys live in a bubble, so they don't count. They're just losers.
Exactly.
Also, I want to give a shout out to Lance Reddick. It was great seeing him back in the game. Obviously, that was great after his untimely passing. But between that and John Wick 4. Honestly, I feel like we didn't know what we had until it was gone. Seeing his acting in that game, I was like, God damn, this guy chews the
voice,
scenery.
Man. That voice is just like it's just prime acting, voice acting.
He liked it. He liked games, so like he knew he was there, and he showed up, and he played these games like. And even Quantum Break, like he was great in Quantum Break. He did the show, he did the game, like he showed up and he did his job, and like he loved every minute of it. So like I really wish we had some time with him, but like at least we got one more game. I don't know if there's any more content coming down the pipeline, but I mean for sure there's definitely more Destiny content coming in the future because like for sure, I'm sure they were planned ahead for this. But yeah, it was very nice to see him. It was bittersweet.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool that he's still there and you can enjoy his awesome work. So that's another plus to the DLC. You get another chance to see him do his good stuff. Okay, elsewhere, Steve, a game that just dropped, I believe today. It's today. Yeah, on April 27th. The Last Case of Benedict Fox. This is a game that I think we saw a couple of short trailers for earlier this year.
About it.
Yeah, and it looks really cool. It looked really cool. It was like really short snippets of the game. It's on Game Pass as well. How is it, man? And really, what is it?
What is it is a really good question. Yeah, because I think we first saw it last year at the Xbox Game Showcase. We saw like the brief trailer of it, and I was like, oh, that game looks interesting. I always love when Xbox highlights the indie, so I was like, okay, I'm going to keep an eye on this. And I totally forgot about it for almost a year. And I'll be honest, like you guys are saying that people are talking about it. I didn't see people talk about it until this week, to be honest. Until like
they're probably in the same boat as you, where it's just sort of like honestly, it got lost in the shuffle or whatever.
And what this game is, it's a Metroidvania. But it's really dark and gothic. Basically, it takes place right after World War I. You're a detective. You go back to your family home. And in this kind of like alternate universe after World War One, cultists began to kind of like infiltrate the government and kind of do these ritualistic experiments trying to unlock, the gates of hell or stuff like that. So you go back to your family home, you're trying to investigate your father, actually, who may or may not have ties into this like cult. And along the way, you inadvertently discover this power where you can like leap into the minds of deceased people. So you're in this mansion, and all of a sudden you see your father's body there, and then next thing you know, the main chunk of the game is exploring his quote unquote mind, but it's very Lovecraftian in this way. It's very gross and icky, the environments you're going through. I would say like it's a lot of the environments and kind of the layout of the game remind me of Ori, but if Ori was like super depressed, super into emo music, like if he was like an angsty kind of teenager, this is what
the whole
Ori
world,
would be.
the post World War I emo phase, like one of
exactly. those. We've all been there, right?
At one point.
But yeah. So that's essentially what you're doing. You're exploring, and
okay. I was trying to figure out like what the setting was, because I didn't really quite know the whole dive into someone's mind. At least I didn't remember whatever. I'm like, oh, this world looks very crazy and weird and dark or whatever. But I guess it's because you are going into someone else's, like you said, their being, their mind, their whatever. Yeah. Anyways,
and alongside you kind of have this. They call it the quote unquote the companion. It's this Lovecraftian creature who's almost like a Venom. To your Eddie Brock, your Tom Hardy, who so he'll like talk
better than that
background.
Okay.
Kind of
okay.
Very moody.
Wait. Venom is cinema.
Okay.
Cinema.
Sure. Pineapple pizza, no problem.
These bad takes are just oh god, I don't know what to say anymore. You guys are just off the rocker. I'm actually offended by the fact that you don't think. You guys probably like Morbius. That's the problem with you guys.
We're Morbs. We're Morbs over here.
I have not even seen that movie, so I
don't believe that for a second. You probably have the DVD and the Blu-ray and the Steelbook, and you probably have it on streaming. So I don't believe that.
I have it in 3 different places. Yeah, no, 3 different forms of media. Yeah,
but yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Sorry, back to
back to this Venom creature. So you have this companion, and he kind of like guides you along the way, and it helps you during combat. But yeah, essentially the crux of the game is exploring these like Metroidvania levels, gaining new abilities, and then you go back to the mansion. It's essentially like the hub world where there's a whole bunch of like different puzzles, whether it's like key puzzles, dial puzzles, and you're unlocking the clues into how to solve them through going through the minds of these deceased people that you come across. So it's this interesting like kind of back and forth where you're going through these like darker areas back to kind of like a Resident Evil-esque mansion, where you're just unlocking these different doors, kind of getting the story that way, then going back into the mines, right? That part, really cool. I'm really digging that. It's the combat. Oh man, like I really want the combat to be a little better in this game. So essentially the whole thing is that you have like a knife, which you can like, slash at enemies, a parry system in which your companion kind of like blocks, it comes out of you and kind of blocks their attack.
Oh, okay.
And then after a certain amount of hits with your knife, it builds up this like meter. And once the meter's filled, you can shoot your gun at the enemy, essentially. So you have those
like one shot,
and then you have to build that meter back up.
Okay.
So far, I don't know if I can like upgrade it. I'm probably like 4 or 5 hours into the game. I'm still at a one shot. I understand what this game kind of wants to be. It wants to be a more fast-paced, frenetic, hit one enemy, parry the other one, dodge, shoot the thing, rinse and repeat. It really wants you to play that way. But the combat is probably like 80% there in order for you to achieve that. I feel like it's just a little too sluggish, a little too unresponsive, where I feel like, I'm double tapping the slash button, expecting to hit them twice. But, Benedict just goes once, leaves himself open. He gets hit. and then it's kind of just a
So
wash that way.
yeah, so it's sort of like, like you swing, but you really have to work with the animation until the animation's done, and then you can do it again.
Exactly.
Is it that sort of thing? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then there's also so it shows you when the enemy is about to attack, so you can initiate the parry. Timing's a
Okay.
little
Okay.
off, in my opinion, anyways. I'm curious if anyone else is kind of running into a similar issue where I feel like it's just slightly delayed in the responsiveness. I don't know, but I understand what they're trying to go for. They're almost there in a way that I think that would, propel this game to be even greater than I think it is. I think it's a solid game. I think it's worth at least exploring. But then there are just frustrating elements to it where anytime
Mm.
I come across combat, especially with like a boss fight, there's one boss fairly early on where, a tentacle comes out of the ground and it slams into the ground, but I feel like I'm out of the way. But for some reason, the area of effect on it just hits me. I go flying backwards. I'm like, I'm rinsing and repeating, and I'm kind of just going through this boss based on sheer luck and kind of just
Ah.
forcing my way through rather than feeling like, oh, I did all the right steps along the way to make me feel like, I'm progressing in a
Mm-hmm.
meaningful way. So yeah, it's a fun game. I think the art style is awesome. It reminds me of like Coraline or any of those like Leica
Yeah. Yeah.
animation
Yeah.
films.
That animation studio.
Obviously, it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, it's not stop motion or anything, but it kind of has that similar look and feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really dig that stuff. I love the puzzle solving and getting the different keys and figuring out what they mean and unlocking the next door. Put me in a mansion with puzzles, I'm there any day. I love that stuff, going all the way back to the original Resident Evil.
Yeah. I
But
was gonna say.
anytime I see like a room full of enemies, I'm like, here we go. Like,
Oh, okay.
uh,
And does it
yeah.
feel like is there a lot of combat or like 50-50 kind of thing? Like how do they sort of, I mean, it sounds like there's enough of it that
There's
it's
enough to keep it feeling like you are progressing into combat and everything. So basically, a big part of it is like upgrading Benedict through like getting what they call ink. You defeat enemies, get ink. You visit this one woman; she'll ink you up with tattoos. It's kind of like a really cool thing, like dark light tattoos. I
nice.
really dig that aspect. So there's enough there to kind of feel like, okay, I've defeated all these enemies in this specific area of the map. Now I can go back, get a new ability from this mysterious woman. She gives me a couple, new tattoos, and now I have like you jump and then you slam into the ground. It has like an area of effect for multiple enemies. So maybe by the time I get like, 3/4 through this game, I'll feel more powerful. I'll feel more free in the way I'm moving and stuff like that. But so far, about 4 or 5 hours in, I still feel kind of sluggish and just,
Which is a decent chunk of time to not
yeah,
quite feel like it's there yet. Like you
right.
think maybe, okay, maybe a couple hours, it's telling lots of story elements, it happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, 4 or 5 hours, it might improve, but it doesn't seem like, at least it doesn't sound like it may drastically change. So we'll,
Right. And at first I thought maybe it's just a me problem. Maybe I'm just not playing the game the way I want to. And I
right.
tried, I slowed myself down. I was like, okay, I'm going to slash, parry, slash again, wait. And I was like, it's the timing of it. It's just the mechanics are there. They're just not lining up to how fast they want the game to be played or how the
Gotcha.
game wants to be played. So
Gotcha. Okay. So
I
it's
still
sort of
think it's
battling
worth
itself. Yeah.
a little bit, yeah. I think it's worth checking out. Again, it's on Game Pass. Why not? But I don't think that is going to be the surprise hit that maybe like Hi-Fi Rush was.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Well, I before we hit record, I said, "Oh, I'm going to try this now that I saw that you said you were playing it. I'm going to give it a shot too." And
Yeah. I'm
between
excited
that
to hear your
and
thoughts.
yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. Between that and Star Wars in the next week or two, those are probably the two games I'll be playing. So
Nice.
I'll report back on that, and we'll see how you're feeling about it going forward too. So.
Yeah.
On the other side of things, I have been playing something that has much more dynamic, fast, and very fun combat. I would say not heavily combat, but there is some of it. That's Teslagrad 2, which I played a preview of. I want to say 2-3 months ago. It was January, February this year. It was the first hour of the game. I think you could sort of play around a little bit more, so it was like an hour and a half or something. But generally, you got to a certain point in the story or of the map. And that's sort of where the preview ended. I had a great time with that. I thought like, oh, this is a really cool way of doing this. I like the the way that it looks. I like the music, the feel of the controls and everything. And then they sort of said it was going to be out at some point in the first half of this year, and then they shadow dropped it at the Indie Showcase from Nintendo just last week. So it's only been out for about a week. And I played through it within, it's honestly, sadly, I think the biggest issue this game has is that it's too short. It's just, there's more there's more to explore, and there's more fun things to do. And I thought that it just didn't last long enough. So essentially you're a girl that is on this sort of like Zeppelin or blimp in this very like steampunk and Norse themed world. And you get shot down by, I guess you can call them sky pirates or something, because they're on like a ship that looks like a pirate ship, but it's also floating in the air. And you're off to see your family because she's holding a picture of her family, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go see my family." But there's no voiceover, there's no text, nothing in this entire game. It's all done visually, which as it goes on actually is really nice. It's charming the way that they do it, and all that. But yeah, so you're sort of dropped in this area, and you need to survive essentially. And you're discovering the fact that this world that you're in now is kind of decimated by what seems to have been like a previous war. And you're zipping around by doing a couple of different moves. You know, the left trigger, for example, will have you slide on the ground really fast, and you can sort of build up momentum when you go down hills. So if there's like a large gap that you need to jump across, you build momentum, and I mean like fast. Like you are zipping from left to right or right to left on the screen in a second sometimes. And you just jump across, and it sounds really fast and feels really quick, but eventually you get a sense of the movement and how the game works and everything. But it's really, really cool. It's 2D, and you can sort of move. It's a really like dynamic Metroidvania type of game, I would say. But it's using electricity and magnets and currents as like your abilities and the world around you. So the reason why you can slide across the ground is because you have, a connection to electricity on the ground and metal that will be on the floor of buildings you're in and stuff. So you're able to sort of slide around it. And there's not really much of a jump. The jump is very short and very small, which is why you need that momentum. So instead, to sort of help that, you have a dash, which basically turns you into a lightning bolt, and you go from A to B in like a lightning bolt. And it sounds really cool. It looks really fun. And it's a way you can sort of traverse through all these really cool environments and stuff. And then you have the ability to attach or repel yourself on magnets that are in the world. So a red will repel you and a blue will attract you. And you can sort of use the triggers and the shoulder buttons to sort of maneuver your way around all these traversal areas that are sometimes a little slower, and you have to sort of make your way through obstacles, or fast, and you need to combine all these different abilities and stuff to get it done. So it's really one of those games, like you mentioned Ori, Steve, a few minutes ago. Yeah. It's kind of like that, where you have all these really tricky jumps and mechanics you have to swing together and sort of mesh together and in one fluid movement and moment that literally could last 9 seconds, but you're doing all these different button presses and all these different cool things to sort of make it happen. And then the second your feet land on the ground, then you've beat that section, you're like, shit, yeah, I did it. Like, yes, nice. That felt good.
I love that.
And there's lots of that. Yeah, there's lots of that in this. I wouldn't say it's as difficult. I don't think it's supposed to be as difficult and as not frustrating, but that difficulty level that a game like Ori or Celeste, like those games, I think, especially Celeste, is supposed to be really, really difficult. Like that's really part of the point of that gameplay, at least. It doesn't go to that extent, but it has hints of it here and there. But thankfully, like those games, if you die, you're back instantaneously. So you don't feel like you're being ripped off of time. The checkpoint system is pretty forgiving. So if it's a long stretch of abilities that you put together and you die in the middle of it, you're going to go back to the beginning of it. You're not going to go back to some shrine or place that you got a checkpoint of from 5 minutes ago, and you have to do 7 different things just to get to that one point that you died at the most difficult moment. So I really like that. I hate when games, especially Metroidvania games, will have you in a boss, but the closest checkpoint is even just a minute of you walking through this area. And I don't understand that. If you're at a boss battle, especially, like just make that the checkpoint.
Right. Yeah. The gates of the boss battle. Yeah.
Start of the boss battle. It's fine. Don't have me like, have extra health or chip away at what I've already chipped away. Just start from the beginning. I want to get the mechanics, and I want to get the patterns of that boss down, let me just keep repeating it. So in this, there's a couple boss battles. I wouldn't say they're all that difficult, but they are fun. It does vary around the gameplay a lot. But it's a really cool. It controls really fluid. It looks awesome. The music is excellent. It's one of those ones that you could definitely have on the background while you're writing or doing some work and stuff. It's has this really like Celtic Norse mixed style with a little bit of like, yeah, it's really, really cool and really chill. They do a really good job. Every once in a while, there's like vocals that come in and chime in when you're doing something that's not as hectic. And it almost feels like, even though I'm doing something difficult, I feel like it just makes you feel like you're doing something special, even though it is nowhere close to the big massive abilities that you just pulled off right before that section. So there's something about it that really flows well with it. It's pretty short. I didn't write down exactly how long it took me. I want to say it took me 5 or 6 hours in total. Yeah. And that's with like, dying and repeating and stuff. So because I enjoyed it so much and I thought the controls were so tight and the world is so interesting and looks fun, I kind of would have appreciated a couple more hours. But at least it doesn't overstay its welcome, which some games do. And so it's a really good bite-sized thing. I think it would work on any platform that it's out. I played it on PC, but a Switch would be great. I think it would still look good handheld. There's not too much busy stuff and small text and enemies and things like that going on that you can't play it on a smaller screen. So it would work really good on handheld devices as well. So yeah, Teslagrad 2, the review will be up on Console Creatures, and it is a great game. Also have some video on the review as well from the preview, which is the first initial half hour to 45 minutes of the game that I played at that time, and which is the same half hour to hour that is the game. So that's how I realized it was the beginning of the game. It's because I started this again, went, oh, okay. It actually which was interesting, it actually gave me the option to pick up where I left off on the preview, which I didn't think. That. Yeah, it was great.
Love that stuff.
Yeah, so I started it just to be like, oh, is it any different? And then I played 10 minutes. I'm like, oh no, it's the same. And then I just picked up where I left off, which was great. I thought that was awesome. I learned. I didn't have to relearn a couple abilities that I already remembered how to do. They're not to the difficulty where, like we were talking about with Horizon, where it's like, oh, I'm fumbling too much. It literally took me like a couple minutes. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is pretty simple. It's a couple triggers and then X button, and that's pretty much it. So. Yes, I recommend Teslagrad 2 to anyone out there that wants a little bite-sized game like that. And then my preparation for the latest Zelda game that will be coming out for Switch is not going back to Breath of the Wild, not going back to anything too recent. I have never played Majora's Mask before, so I am going through it for the first time. I shelled out the $50, I think is what it came down to, for the year of the N64 on Switch.
Okay.
The expansion pack, which, yeah, sure, I'll pick up a couple of Genesis games and stuff, here and there. But really, I wanted to like just play a really good version of this game that was tight. I think all the bugs in the N64 stuff has been long worked out. There's other games on here that I want to play. I also have my excuse of having an N64 podcast separately. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm just going to justify it through that. Yeah, I'm gonna Spence it through myself. Yeah. So that's how I'm playing it. And I will say that I do really enjoy the game, but I don't know that I would enjoy it as much if I was playing the original version on the N64, because without save states and without being able to every once in a while look up something that I just cannot figure out, like a small side quest or something.
Yeah.
I think if I played this in 2000 or 99, whenever it came out, I honestly think I would be just racking my brain a little bit too much, because the mask system I really like. I love how they've expanded upon what Ocarina of Time did. And I love how there's all these, like, you're essentially playing a different character every couple of minutes, and especially every dungeon, right? So I love that part of it. I think that's really interesting. They all act differently. They all have different abilities. All that stuff's really cool. But all the sort of like side quests that require these extra masks and hats and things like that, I don't know how I was supposed to figure out most of these. And this is like old man yells at cloud kind of thing. But I just like, maybe I would have figured it out as a kid, but I honestly don't know how I would have figured this out as a kid, because some of them I was like, I need to get, I think it was a bomb bag where I could carry bombs for the first time. And I need to, on the first night at midnight, go to a particular part of wait for the old lady to come by. And I'm just like, how the living shit am I supposed to know that only within that 1 hour on that one day. I can't show up on the second day, can't show up on the third, has to be at midnight and has to be in the evening. How the hell was I supposed to know that? Unless I missed a really big clue that was previously there, very possible, but I don't understand how that could have possibly happened.
So I'll take you back to when I was in grade school. This game came out, and 100%ed it over time. I'll tell you exactly how. Prima guides. You just you had the Prima guide next to you, flipping through it. It was like, okay, hit up this this mission, because you're just talking about, like, in my opinion, one of the most simple, like, side quests.
Oh, absolutely. This is like the first one, essentially.
There is one that I don't even understand how someone can figure it out for a guide. That's how complex it is.
Right,
That's how,
right.
like, it's the love story one. Yeah. And to me, anyways, yeah,
just built like that. They're like, how, like, I don't know. Just like some of the games from the 64 and the PlayStation, they're like these, like, very, I don't even know the word to describe it. Like, they're just so precisely obscure that I'm like, who thought of this? And
I know
Zelda's a perfect game for that. Like, Majora's Mask has moments like that. It's like, who thought of this?
And I think I understand what they're trying to do. Like, I do think that maybe there's a little bit too much extra stuff and extra masks to do. It feels like so far. I'm just getting started on the third dungeon, which is the water one with the Zoras and everything. Yep. So I've been a decent, I've been a decent way through. Then I look at the sort of like screen where it has all the masks and stuff. I'm like, there's a lot of gaps in here. There's no way I'm going to find most of these, never mind all of them, before I finish this game. So I don't know if that means I'm like underpowered, but I definitely will not have the right amount of like hearts and magic bar, probably, because I'm not going to be doing as much of the extra stuff. Because honestly, like, I want to figure it out on my own. One, we're just talking about how we don't have a lot of time to play games. And two, I want to finish this game, and I want to talk about it on my other podcast. I want to like talk about it properly and experience this game for the first time. I like it. I think this Ocarina of Time, the gameplay, the style of it, I think it's great. It's those little moments in between where I just am having a really hard time. I wish it was possible. I honestly, like you were saying, Steve, you were saying before, I don't think it's possible to come up with a solution to some of these things. And I don't understand that approach at all. I really don't get that design.
No, and I think that's a really fair critique and criticism of it. Again, I'm going back to just being a kid and having the Prima guide for Ocarina of Time, and then picking up Majora's Mask and just grabbing that day and date and just flipping through it, because I was such a nerd for everything to do with those N64 games. But I totally agree that I think half that game is just so obscure in its puzzles, in its timing, everything, that you would either have to dedicate an entire year to be like, okay, at the first day, I'm going to spend the entire day over in this area of the town. Now, second day, same thing. I'm going to stand right there and just watch different characters interact with each other. That's the only way you would naturally solve some of these puzzles. But
if that, because sometimes you have to go across half the map just to figure out one small little detail that will open up. Like, the bomb bag was necessary to go into the area, never mind the dungeon, but the area to get to the dungeon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just, like, I saw like I think it was like big boulders or snowballs or something you had to sort of break or whatever. I'm like, okay, this is a Zelda game. It's like Ocarina of Time. I know I need bombs to break these. That's fine. How do I get the bombs? I started walking around. Honestly, after 20 minutes, I was like, fuck this. I'm looking this up. Like, I just have to. And then, you basically have to trigger an event in order to do a necessary item. This is not a side quest. And I just, anyways, I'm going to keep going in circles. Regardless of that, I do like this game. I honestly think, aside from that, those decisions, those, like, probably maybe archaic is the wrong way to say it, but those dated decisions of game design don't work for me. But everything else has been doing that for me. It works. I like the dungeons. They're fun. Even doing the side quest is fun once I know what to do.
Sure.
So it's not like for me, I don't really like being spoiled on movies and shows, especially if it's something I'm looking forward to. Like, I kind of try and avoid those. Like, so, that's fine. But when it comes to a game that I really just want to experience, and something that's been around for 25 years that I haven't experienced, I'm okay every once in a while getting some hints here and there. And it, like we've been saying, just feels like it's necessary. So I'm enjoying it, Steve. I know that it's like, your favorite or one of your favorite Zelda games. So
yeah, just based on like the content, I'd say that probably Majora's Mask and the Breath of the Wild, just based on like what it does. But
yeah,
oh man, that it does suck that you are torn between, naturally progressing through it or doing, the quote unquote the cheater way of going through a 100% guide or something, because the incentive at the very end when you do get all the masks is so good, is so iconic in my opinion. It's just one of
damn.
those things that when I think of Zelda, I think of that moment as a kid doing the thing. And it's not like the Koroks in Breath of the Wild where you get all the Koroks and then some
Right.
characters like, here's a piece of shit for you, fuck off. Like, it's one of like
Here's another one.
Yeah, it's such a stupid cool moment that I don't think will ever be replicated in Zelda games, in my opinion anyway. And that's what solidified the game of being in the upper echelon. It was like, oh, okay, I went through the monotony of grabbing like the bunny hat or whatever.
Yep. I got the bunny hat. That's when I think I almost got that on my own. And then there was one thing where I was like, wait, am I doing this right? And I just didn't want to run in circles. I just, I want to get through this game and whatever.
But some of the masks are fun to get.
The abilities and really stuff, cool. They're fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then other ones are like, oh, I have a rock face. That's cool, I guess. But by the end
I have
of the
the
game,
pig one. I don't know what that does yet. I don't know what the hell that thing does.
Big one.
You put it on and he literally just starts sniffing. He's like,
that's right. Yeah, he sniffs. That's it.
I have no idea what it's for yet. I don't know if I'm going to figure it out, but it was like the first one that I got. Yeah. I don't remember how I got it, but I got it. So,
but even those like weird, obscure ones by the end, when the thing happens, it's like, oh, okay, this was worth it. This was a fucking
and I don't know anything about how this game progresses really. Like I've really at the time, for whatever reason, I never owned it, and I just was off to something else, playing something different at the time, whatever it was, right? Honestly, it was probably No Mercy. I was probably just playing WWF No Mercy the entire 2000. So, and 2001 and 2 and 3 and 4. Yeah.
Can't blame you.
So and that's another thing, sort of like when you're sort of talking about the way it ends and stuff. I do like the way that it starts. I do like the story. I do like the fact that you are not just like save the princess, Link, save the princess, Mario. Like it's not that story, and I like that. It's fine if it is. There's nothing wrong with that. But Ocarina of Time, for not largely but partially, is like help me, Link.
Sure.
That story has been done 500,000 times in games. This is sort of like this. It is sort of like save the world. I mean, it's, with the moon crashing down and everything. But I like the way it starts. I like the way it progresses. I like the fact that you are not Link pretty much right at the beginning. All that kind of stuff is really cool. And
it's dark. It's scary. It's depressing at times when, the third day comes and you're just interacting with the town members and they're like, well, this is it. Moon's coming down. Like, man.
And Skull Kid has like this weird quirky personality, but it's also dark.
What a cool character.
He's one of the best characters the series has ever seen. It's just
I agree.
Such a shame they never were able to pull up a sequel or something. I mean,
some way to sort of link that
use the mask for something else.
Right? Something like that. The mask, but I know like Zelda's sort of
with the upcoming game, it could tie in. We're just dropping it there. Who knows?
That
would be cool.
Right?
I mean, if it's at the end of the timeline, anything goes, I'm thinking. So who knows?
Maybe they're going to do a multiverse thing too.
They're
going to bring everything together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's got a multiverse now. Why not Legend of Zelda?
I mean, technically it is.
Kind of.
It kind of is. I mean, it's like
there are two timelines.
Game 1's not the same as game 4. It feels like most of the games are not connected, at least to me, but I also have not played all of them and I don't follow the story super deeply. So for me, it's like, I know Ocarina of Time and Majora's Masks are very much connected. Like literally they take place right after each other. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. But like if I played this and then played Breath of the Wild, I don't see these as the same character. Like I don't like, yes, it's Link, but to me,
neither does Nintendo, but
right. At this point, definitely not. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. It's fine. They can open up a portal and things can happen. I'd be up for that. It'd be cool to see someone like Skull Kid and the abilities that you have and stuff in a new engine, in a new looking, because it's so stylish. This game is so stylish. It just, it's 23 years old at this point. So fair enough. It looks the way it looks. It does look a little sharper and stuff on the Switch, on the 64. emulation of it. So it's sort of like the up-res. I think 3DS version is probably my guess is what they did.
Gotta be, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So it definitely looks a little sharper, which is good. The lighting is not so muddy and things like that. So that helps because, like you said, it is kind of a dark game. But yeah, so I'll check back with Majora's Mask. It's probably going to take me a few more weeks to kind of finish it. I've been playing it off and on for about a week and a half now.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm in the just about to start the third dungeon. So I don't know what that's roughly halfway, maybe 2/3, something like that, depending on how long
2/3.
Yeah, but and I know there's 4 dungeons. I can tell just by the masks and how it's so, and what the sort of 4 different areas I need to go to and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll see how much side stuff I get done before that. But yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so that's what we've been playing. Let's talk a little bit about some not so great news. We just found out within the last few hours that a pretty large and impactful gaming reporting website and team have been completely let go. Waypoint, which was run by and owned by Vice, Vice let a bunch of people go under their staff, and Waypoint was one of them. I don't know the exact number in front of me. I don't have the exact number in front of me, how many people lost their jobs. But regardless, as of June 2nd, 2023, people like Patrick Klepek, which is the first name that comes to mind for me, and Waypoint will be no more. And this is one in a number of outlets that have either been shuttered or harshly slashed as far as staff goes. And, it's sadly the way that a lot of media in general has been going over the last, I would say, decade. And games media is part of that, clearly, because there's so many people that this is happening to on a number of levels, regardless of what position you have. And I know that we could cycle through like, oh, why would this happen? How come this? How come that? But honestly, like, this sucks, right? I mean, plain and simple, this is shit.
It's the worst thing that could happen. That's basically what it comes down to. It's C-level executives who have no idea what the fuck they're doing, running the show and calling the shots because all they're looking at is sales figures and numbers, and they understand nothing about how life works. They're just sheltered old white men that don't deserve their jobs, and that's the fact. And I would like to be proven wrong. It's the same fact over and over.
Sure, yeah, everyone would love to be. Yeah, it'd be nice if that was not the case. But at least that's what it screams. That's what this kind of stuff always screams. And it's not like this isn't shit. And you're not saying what you said, Bobby, because it's Waypoint. It's because of the industry and because of who these people are and the good work that they did, and will probably continue to do. But it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? I don't know, Steve. I know we're kind of all on the same page.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, no, we definitely are all on the same page. It's definitely a heartbreak. It's definitely it's
not surprising.
No, exactly. It's become so common that we saw it right before we were going live and everything, and it was like, yeah, if it wasn't today, it was bound to happen. Unfortunately, like it just feels like every major outlet that isn't like an IGN, even IGN goes through layoffs from time to time. But I'm saying like any kind of Washington Post was another one that laid off.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah,
media. Fanbyte. It's like any major publication that is owned by like an umbrella company that doesn't necessarily do video games will inherently face this at some point, because unfortunately right now when you look at the media landscape, they look at okay, well, we gotta save money, we gotta save money, or we want to make more money, and what's first on the chopping block? Video games and content creation. And that's just the unfortunate truth right now, is that as media, as video game press, as writers, everyone here, we're trying to legitimize what we do, whether it's in the form of like a hobby thing or career wise. We're always trying to legitimize this as video game journalism matters. And it just sucks because every time I read a story like this, I'm just more and more incentivized to just not write about video games. I mean, right now I'm like at a point where I'm like 50-50, where I just do like a lot of tech stuff, and then I'll do video games every once in a while when I'm able to. But the more I see like even if Vice can't do it when they had Waypoint and it was super successful for many years, that, you know, you talked about what Patrick Klepek made, the podcast, the
2016.
articles.
So it was around. It's around for a
That's
while.
a
Yeah,
long time. Yeah.
yeah.
And if they can't figure it out, well, what
I know.
like
Like,
it's so
it attracted
it's so
great talent.
fucked.
So what's the
Yeah.
problem? You know,
Right.
like are people like us and the general, I mean, we're still the general public, but you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
people that would consume something that Waypoint does or IGN or whoever, it doesn't matter. Like sort of the larger things, or Fanbyte where it was owned by another, you know, larger company and stuff. Like, are we not, it's not on us necessarily, but I mean, like, are we not like showing them enough that we appreciate and like the work that they do, and be like, look, there's value here. Like, what do they need to know that is going to have these places continue to survive? Because they should, because they do work that shows appreciation for the work that we all enjoy, which is video games. You know, like their job isn't just to write a review and be like, hey, I like this game or I didn't, which I know we sort of have just been doing in the last 45 minutes, but at the same time, but that's not where it starts and ends. And it's just like, there's more to it than that, and there's value, and the people that make these games and are in this industry deserve to be talked about, and they deserve the respect, just like the people that talk to them to write the stories about them. You know what I mean? Like it's supposed to be a handshake, and they're not treating it that way.
And I think that's the inherent problem is the value proposition. And the unfortunate truth is that when you look at the audience, the native audience of video games, when they look at what is the value of a website right now, it's lesser than going on TikTok and getting a 45-second review of something we just did. You know, like when we talk about, you know, the last case of Benedict Fox or something like that, even us having a 10-minute conversation on a podcast that is accessible, it's free, is still of less value than something that's even more condensed and accessible and free. You know, like it's
and quick and will be forgotten about in 2 seconds.
It's
you know,
that
like,
plus everyone hates games journalists. That's the
that
fact.
too.
They've been
That's a
turned
huge
into like martyrs
Yeah.
now for their craft, and they're either paid shills or they're stupid or they don't know what they're talking about. And the fact of the matter is that the general public don't care about anything that a games journalist does. They don't follow it.
well,
Because they can see what happens when they post a review score that they think is too low or too high for something, and then they'll harass the person.
God forbid someone has an opinion.
But then you see them following like vile YouTubers who have no idea what the hell they're talking about and try and put their own review out, and they're like, yeah, he makes sense. But no, the fact of the matter is, content creators are not the right people to critique a game. They're just people who are churning out game reviews for clicks, and really they don't know what they're doing. And I'm not saying that's all of them. There are some fantastic content creators who have very valid critiques and nuanced techniques to report on them, but like for the majority, people just do it because they think that they're smarter than the average reviewer.
Yeah, and there's a balance there. There's nothing wrong with you know, there's, you know, you don't do one or the other, or one is necessarily the only way to do it or the other, but there's
no right or wrong way. It's just that the appreciation is not there for the medium, and that's one thing.
What it is.
Right.
That's what
I think any form of content, whether it's written, a podcast, a TikTok, a YouTube video, anything like that, it's all valuable as an objective standpoint.
To the right
when
person.
it comes to the audience, the consumption of that, it's not a level playing field. There's definitely you know, preferential treatment and everything. And
you could write the best review in the world, but as soon as if no one knows who you are, they don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but
or
I
it's the game that they think is a no, go ahead.
Bobby, that you brought up, which is the general audience, and it is inherently, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing, where massive media corporations, they're scared to put games up front and center, which then, you know, makes the general audience not really know nor appreciate video game press. Case in point, we brought up the Washington Post, and I want to bring them up again because Gene Park put his preview for Tears of the Kingdom up the other day, and I saw that he tweeted at some point, he was like, hey, it got so much traction from the video game audience that is now on the front page of the Washington Post, but in doing so garnered so much attention from the general audience that the comments were just flooded by people who didn't really understand video game journalism, just be like, why is this here? Like,
Right.
they're just
Right.
so they don't understand, like that video game journalism has the same rightful places like sports or entertainment
Yeah.
or movies or anything like that.
Well, it is
Because
entertainment. That's what it is.
because it's the exposure of it. Like, so
Yeah.
many of these corporations are so scared to have a video game editorial or review on their front page because they're like, oh, this is new. The older audience isn't going to get this. They're not going to understand why Overwatch 2 matters. But then when it does matter to get to the front page, they're like, what the fuck is this? I've never seen,
Well, yeah, because I mean, you take if my parents were one of those people that opened up the page and saw that it was a general preview review of any video. It doesn't matter how big or small it is. And it was right there in the front of whatever page it was that they normally would get their news from. I think they would be confused. I don't think they'd be upset, but they'd be like, oh, that's interesting that it's there and not in the section that it's supposed to be. That's sort of like, maybe I would get the question from them the next day, be like, oh yeah, I was on the, Washington Post website. I saw there was like like they would know, they would kind of recognize the word Zelda and be like, oh, I know that's a video game.
Yeah.
That's pretty much as far as it goes for them. And they'd be like, oh, that's interesting. How come it was there? Is it like, did something happen? Like, that's what they would think that something bad happened.
Is Nintendo bankrupt?
I don't even, I honestly, like, the word Nintendo would have to be on there for them to know that was a Nintendo game, because they don't know the difference. They're the meme of like, I got my kid an Xbox. I got my kid an Xbox. I got my kid an Xbox. And they're all the same. Or I got my kid a Nintendo, and it's all the Nintendos. They're just called Nintendo. No. Which, it is what it is. But yeah, but like the general audience that isn't, didn't grow up as a gamer or whatever, I could see that absolutely being the thing. And it's, gaming is much bigger than I think the average person realizes, based on how much money it makes, how many people are involved, how big of an industry it is for people to have jobs, whether they're making the games or reporting on them, or even working for publishers, working for whatever it is, PR firms, like all these things. There's so much involved in it. And I think people just think like, oh, it's a few people that made some electronic stuff on their computer, and people that, used to play Super Mario in 1993 still kind of like it now. And like, that's, and that's a certain generation, I think, and a certain group of people that would have that mindset. And that's, I don't know. I don't know if that's the only problem. I know that's not what you're saying, Steve, but like, what do we like? I don't know what to do. Like, these people deserve to have their jobs. They deserve to report on games. They deserve to have a relationship with developers and publishers. It's fucking bullshit, man. It really is. And they're not the only ones. They're just the latest, and one of the biggest. So
I mean, all we can do is keep on advocating for video game journalism.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're gonna keep doing. Keep playing some games. We got Zelda coming up. I got Star Wars pre-downloaded on my PS5. We're gonna just keep going. Majora's Mask, Benedict Fox, and we got lots of stuff coming up soon. So until that time, consolecreatures.com is where you can see our work. Steve, everybody can find you online where?
Yeah, you can find me basically everywhere at svigvari.
There we go. Bobby, we got some fun stuff coming up on the website too, some reviews and things like that. How's everyone finding us?
You can find us at consolecreatures.com, Console Creature on Twitter, Console Creatures on Instagram, and Real Console Creature. We can't even talk, guys. Real Console Creature on Facebook. And we're looking at some new avenues, so stay tuned, because we're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, we're trying to.
It's not an OnlyFans, so don't worry. Dave's not doing that. I tried.
Don't worry, we won't break the system.
Yeah, no, we're doing
we won't crash it.
We're doing above the board. Like we're legit. We're legit business.
What is it? Feet Finder, then, right?
Oh yeah, no. That's Luke's business. I can't do that. I can't talk about that.
Well, YouTube as well. I didn't mention off the top of the show like I did last time. I completely forgot. You can find this podcast on there, and also gameplay videos. Also, when we reference the way things look, like we did with Benedict Fox, for example, you can see some of that gameplay. You can see some of the trailers and stuff as we're talking about it. So it's a good place to find those as well. Console Creatures on YouTube. But until next time, everybody, have a great week. We will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.